Hi everyone, welcome back to another video. If this is your first video, hi, I'm Arlathia. So for this one, we have comic page 20. Woo! We're moving right along. I don't know how many pages are going to be in this, because I know our normal one's probably like, what, 22 pages? Based off of like Sonic the Hedgehog, 'cause I have a lot of those. I have all the IDWs and quite a few of the Archies. Not to brag. But I know the normal one's probably about 22 pages. I'm thinking this is going to be more of like a graphic novel situation because of I'm not even halfway through this story because there's a lot more I gotta do still. So, but I just gotta figure out like where I'm stopping at because I got other comics I want to do too. So I'm gonna go back and forth. So like once I stop this one, we'll move on to the next one. But it's gonna be quite a while before I can actually come back to the stories. So I'm like, do I want to do that? But I probably will. So we'll see. But for this, so we've gotten to the point now where like Arlith, sorry, that's another name of a character. Or I guess Arlathia's female or male version is Arlith, but that's a whole different character. We're not talking about him right now. So for this we have Arlathia and Wright fighting. So what I did, because there's such a huge size difference, was I just did it to where I just did the outlines of the characters, where I've kind of just developed that little situation. I will say though, you don't see this, but when I was coloring this, I had to like put lighting on right. I was having so much fun. I was actually kind of enjoying putting the lighting on him. But so yep. But they're also fighting with the elements. So what I did was I gave Right fighting with fire, and Arlathia is using air. Because she's having to keep herself suspended in the air because she's not the dragon right now. So she's not using her wings. Right, however, the Rightons, they're able to grow wings and like to track them. Because they're not exactly like made the normal way, like they're like an experiment, if you will. So he's able to grow his own wings. That's also what makes them a little more deadly based on their size, but also just their wing. Because if they don't need the wings, they can get rid of the wings, so they're not like in their way. If they need them, they can use them like this. But I was also kind of wanting to have the wings like twisting and curving because he's flying. So I figured because of air movement, because if he's swinging back around from trying to kick her, or like with his tail, like hit her with his tail, then the wings wouldn't be exactly like flat. Like now he's having to move them to kind of go on with his momentum. So that's what this panel is. You'll see the other panels and we'll explain them as we go. But see, I have them coming in for like a punch because I do have like little dialogue boxes. So like this one, so like this dialogue box for this one is just saying like, well, more or less, she has to keep him at a distance because of his size. So it's like obviously he can defeat her because of sheer size because he's got a lot more strength than her. But because she's an elemental, she's got that power behind her. So she can kind of keep it to where they're, hitting each other with the elements. He can't like grab her. But I will say overall, like with him, I thought I did really well, like for this panel, like drawing wise for him. His tail might be a little too big, but I figured because it was kind of curving around still, maybe it would kind of make sense where it like completely goes off in the distance. But we're still learning. But yeah, I did do the fire, and he's got parts coming off of him because his wings are almost like smoke like. Because if he was standing still, they would have, or I guess fire like, where it's got like the flames coming off. Essentially, is what it's not fire, but it's got that effect. So that's what that is. Because again, he can get rid of them or need them as necessary. So that's kind of what they are, but they still support his weight. I don't know how to explain this. So that's what those are. So they're just coming off of him from having like him move around. Because if I did like a really good close up of him, you would even see like little flames coming off of his body in general. So that's just kind of the wings. So because the wings are bigger, you just see them. Because he is moving, so it's like they're having to, they're just going off him. Like they disappear, they don't stay. So that's what that is. And then for her, I have her crouching, kind of ready to go to punch him. And I did curl her tail around. I probably could have left it out behind her. But I don't know. I kind of like the fact that the tail does curl because it's kind of like ready to like strike back if it needs to or whatever. So, but I was trying to do it to where we kind of saw like her back more, especially with her quills, because now I'm trying to like almost show that her quills are like completely like kind of popped out. Because normally like they'd be like in a resting position, but because she's fighting, now they're out. So it's kind of just like a lot more deadly because her quills are very sharp, and she's got a bunch of them. Because like she's able to like retract and use her quills as necessary, like how he can his wings. So like she can make them completely flat if someone's touching her, or just have them at rest, or just have them completely out if that's what it comes to. So it depends. So right now that's what I was trying to show was like now they're like starting to poke out more. Because now it's like oof kind of thing. It's just more for like protection purposes. But overall, I was like, I thought this kind of turned out pretty good. Especially when I actually go in, do their elements. Because I'm trying to like learn how to color the elements too and like the way I need to do them. Because when I did their hands, I did like some of the outline, but not all the way, so I can color over them and stuff. So now we have this. So this was kind of interesting. So again, I kind of kept it to where a lot of it was just the outlines of them. So like for kind of color him, because it was black, that was interesting. Because I'm trying to make it to where um I lost my thought. Oh, I'm trying to make it to where I can still see the outlines while I color him. So when I go back and like I re-outline him, if I did, I think I did. Yeah, I did. Um, then I could see where his parts are to make it easier, so he's like a little better looking versus me just doing random ass lines and it not being correct. But also with the little flames coming off, that's just showing that his wings are still growing, but he kind of jumped up, so he's got like enough momentum to get in the air, but his wings are still growing. Now for her, I did actually do all of her lines because she is closer to us, but I don't re-outline her because it's kind of supposed to be a little more faded in the background, like we're not super focused on her. But because Wright is still black, he's a lot more apparent than she is. So that was kind of the idea. But because now the sun is directly behind her, or I guess in front, like it's now directly like shining on her back. I don't know what the proper term is. She's faced away from the sun. How about that? So I try to cue it with the lines where I was trying to like, okay, so here's where the sun's coming off the line. The shading all needs to be in the front, away from her facing the sun. So it makes sense, which I think kind of worked. Some areas should have done a little bit better, but I figured because her quills are popped out, it kind of made sense to do that with the lines and the coloring to kind of color underneath them. I think I was trying to find a marker right there. That's why I had my hand up like that because I couldn't find it. You know, the little face hugger from Aliens, just ready to grab. Um, you can't. So that's kind of what I was trying to do there with her quills because I was trying to show. I was like, I need to show that she's got her quills popped out. So, but coloring them was an easy solution. So for this panel, now we have Wright kind of coming up and swinging himself around to try and get her with the tail, but she's quick. So she was able to kind of like do a backflip out of the way. Wish I could do that. That'd be fantastic. So I also wanted to kind of show her speed there because she is pretty quick. But it's also kind of like a good thing for her because she's small, so it's like she's a little bit quicker. So that's what I was trying to do because I even sat there and I was like, did that make sense if she does a backflip like that? I had to think and I was like, is that right? But also with that, she could also kind of like moved off to the side. That's why the hill's still in the way. That's my excuse. It was almost kind of like a side backflip where she was like turning to avoid his tail. But yeah, so with the air element right there, I was trying to like do it to where I put down like the lightest color first on top of the marker. So you can still kind of get the shading in the marker underneath, but it's the color that I need for like the air is what I was wanting to do to make it a little bit brighter, but give off the glow it has was the intention. So I still gotta work it out a little bit, but I think I'm almost there. Because I figured the elements would kind of give off a glow. Like, they're not gonna be matte. They're gonna have something. Because they're bright. That was the intention. But for the background, I didn't do a lot of detail. Because I'm like, it's way in the back. Because they're up in the air. You know? But I was coloring the red because I used 4 colors for either the action lines or just like some other random, like question mark or like exclamation point that sometimes the kind of characters give off, like you draw them, like they're surprised or like confused or something. So that's what I was doing with the red, which is good because it also kind of helps stand out against everything. So you can kind of see what they're doing. Because I don't want to have just black. Like, I like to add the color in there. It also just makes it a little more apparent with what's going on. Sure. That's just the idea. But then I do color it all in white to kind of blend it out some. So it's a little more like hazy. So it's not like super focused in the back. Yes, I did put orange in the water for the reflection, even though it's very far away. I still did it because I was like, it still kind of makes sense. But I still did keep also, even though Arlathia is closer, I still wanted to keep up with the lines only, like just the basic shape, the outline, because right is still a little farther away. Because again, I want to have to be able to show both of them. Like, this is the only way I can really do it because I also don't want to do all these tiny little ass details. Because I will drive myself crazy if I do. And I'm like, we don't have time for that. Sure. Because that is not what I'm doing. But for his tail, I did do a close up. Because I figured it'd be fine because the tail's closer. So it kind of made sense to do that. Even though everything else, I did not put a lot of detail. I just put lines. But I was like, it actually kind of makes sense. Because now his tail's up close. Even though Arlathia is, but she's still kind of far away. So I'm like trying to do like a balancing act of what makes sense, what doesn't. Because I'm like, for me, it makes it a little easier. Because it's like, I did put some detail on them. But at least doing it this way, I can show both. And still kind of make sense and like show the action that they're doing. Right's a little more difficult because he is black. But I do have my way of what you're seeing here where I do like white, gray, and purple before I do the black. Because that helps me discern lines. So when I go back to re-outline him, or even if I don't, you can still kind of see like what he's doing. So that was kind of the intention with Dish. But even if I do it in sections, you can still kind of tell what everything is. So yeah, so then I add the white back in there, one to help pop out lines again, and just for highlight purposes. Because I still want to give it some type of 3D effect. Like I don't want to have it just flat. Like I still want to give them something. So that's what I'm trying to do. So like it does work. Like it looks kind of cool when it's all blended out. And that way it's not just black. It's actually got, 2 other colors in there mixed in with it for a highlight and just kind of like a transition color. Is also why I use the gray, which I think makes sense. Oh, but yeah, you can see around the tail there, I have those little flames, which I'm doing now. So that's what I'm talking about. Because if he was on a close-up, you would still see that part. Because because it is coming off of him like no matter what. And so with his tail flying, it kind of makes sense for it to be there. I also think it kind of helps with the action lines, because now it's kind of going away from his tail, like it should be, because now it's going off to the right because he's going off to the left. Like our left, right? If that makes sense. So it just keeps on adding. Just trying to make it make sense. Right? Everything needs to be made, make it make sense. That's what it needs to be. So that's kind of like my of making it make sense kind of situation. But yeah, so with the coloring, you can see kind of how it smooths out. And it just kind of gives it like a nice little effect there. But I didn't do a lot of black on the tail because the sun is still pointing at them. So I figured the black would still kind of be more around the edges, not like straight on. Because to me, that makes sense for how to color it like that. And then for her, I was still trying to like do that situation. But also because she's closer, she still, for me, is a little more shading. But I was still trying to do it mostly where the shading was like on the edges. Not right in the front with everything else. Even though still trying to like discern certain areas of her. Because like her hair, like her bangs, the ponytail, and then her jacket tails are all kind of like in the same area. So I was like, I guess if some of it's covered, it's fine. Because one, you're not really going to know, because it's all essentially the same thing, curving. But you know, I'll still try and do something. Just to still make it look like it's actually something and not just a blob. No blobs here. But I still did add the white back in, just to kind of give it some more highlight. Because again, I'm still trying to like make it look like she's a 3D character, even though I only have a line showing. I'm still trying to give something. So then this one, this is the first panel where she's like stopping and turning around in the air is what she's doing to face right. But it's also the satisfaction part because it's the lines. Probably one of the best part to do this because that one means I'm done. And two, I can bring the lines back out so it's a little more crisp and clear. So that's what's going on here. And it does work. It makes it look a lot better and nicer. But she's mostly in shade because the sun is now like directly behind her. So that way she would have light shining on the sides, but then the front would be in shading. So then that way when we see it from the back, I guess the sun would technically be in front of her. I don't know what the proper term is, but it's something like that. But here is the end, all of it together. So it still looks good, don't get me wrong. Even though I like cheated on the lines a little bit, but you still see the action going on and like there's generic lines. So it still kind of works. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!